hand and said, "The time is limited to 30 minutes, come here." "Come on, kid, at least let me see how strong you are now," Tsunade thought inwardly. "Ha!" Wooin took out a shuriken from the ninja bag in his lower back and threw it at Tsunade. This surprised Tsunade, because she has never seen Wooin use a shuriken. However, the facts have proved that this is indeed the case. Wooin's shuriken skills were so poor that he used it horribly. Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was observing this scene with a crystal ball, almost choked. Tsunade looked speechless and focused chakra on his feet. As if kicking the ball, he kicked all the shurikens back. This gap perfectly confirms the phrase, "I use my feet better than you." However, at the moment the shuriken was thrown, Wooin had disappeared in place. Shave. It can be said that while Tsunade kicked the shuriken with his foot, Wooin flashed about 2 meters above Tsunade's head. Isn't it body flicker technique, but ninjutsu? Sarutobi Hiruzen thought in surprise. A punch fell from the sky. Tsunade smiled faintly and stretched his palm to resist. The palm, which was almost twice the size of a fist, directly blocked the fist. Puff. However, the aftermath of punch pressure is still like wind pressure. Although the area is not as large as the outside, the training ground is also quite spacious. This kid, the power is. Feeling the power coming from the palm of his hand, Tsunade's eyes flashed with surprise. Kanaha Gale. Keeping his right hand caught by Tsunade's palm, Wooin turned over, splitting his legs and falling in a straight line from top to bottom. Tisk. Tsunade made an unpleasant noise in his mouth, and directly stretched out his other hand to take Wooin's foot like a heavy axe. In an instant, Wooin took a yoga-like exaggerated movement, grabbing both hands and feet by Tsunade. However, at the moment when the kick was caught, Wooin twisted again, and the remaining left hand turned directly backhand. I just want to get the bell tied around Tsunade's waist. This series of actions add up to no more than 3 seconds. Tsunade's blue eyes suddenly shrank. The huge chakra belonging to the Senju clan erupted, concentrated on his right knee, like a Muay Thai boxing, pushing up his knees, and reaching for Wooin to fly with the hand and hit it. Iron body. Wooin drank inwardly. When there was a sound like metal crashing, Wooin was hit and flew to the roof, but at the last moment, he concentrated chakra on the soles of his feet and firmly attached to the ceiling. Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was watching all this through the crystal ball, unknowingly stopped his smoking pipe. It is difficult even for Jonin to make a battle of physiques like this. Is this kid really a 5-year-old kid? But Sarutobi Hiruzen followed immediately, and there was confusion. The set of attacks just now should fully prove Wooin's strength. It stands to reason that Tsunade should be waterproof at the last moment just now, and took the initiative to give Wooin the bell to let him pass the test. But Tsunade didn't do this, but counterattacked to stop N.A.N. What happened? Is she not going to let Wooin pass? Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned in confusion, but as a teacher, he quickly guessed Tsunade's thoughts. Sarutobi Hiruzen can't say much about Tsunade's ideas. Forget it, this matter has reached this point, so let Tsunade handle it. Although in Sarutobi Hiruzen's view, Wooin has enough strength to go to the battlefield to perform some low-level tasks. However, it is also a good plan to protect the genius in advance and grow slowly. And Wooin also saw this. Tsunade really didn't want a graduate. He hasn't guessed the reason yet, but he can feel it. In short, Tsunade wouldn't hurt himself. "Tsunade, are you too serious?" Wooin couldn't help but said. Hummed. Tsunade Sundara hummed, and did not answer Wooin directly. It's a little useless to use it in this kind of place, but there's no way. Wooin crossed his hands to form a cross, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. Tsunade, as a medical ninja, instantly captured the changes in Wooin's breath. The muscles on Wooin's body were also agitated at the same time, and his heart beats even faster, accelerating the blood-boiled blood to every corner of the body. This is. Tsunade on the opposite side and Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was peeping in Hokage's office, had their pupils slightly dilated at the same time. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Haven't seen it before. The first door, open the door, open. With Wooin's low voice, his figure disappeared in an instant, and left a small wave of air in place. Snapped. As with the first move, the fist that rushed was blocked by Tsunade's palm. Boom. But the ear-splitting noise made the entire school students face aside. What happened? This kid, this power. Feeling a completely different intensity from just now, Tsunade also became completely serious. The other hand quickly stretched over, grabbed Wooin's elbow, and threw one over the shoulder. Throw Wooin directly out of the window in the distant shave. On the way, Wooin turned over and landed on the ground. He stepped on the ground in an instant, and rushed up again. Seeing Wooin, whose body is already rushing towards him quickly in the form of afterimages, Tsunade bit her red lips tightly, and muttered in her heart, "Smelly boy, can't you just stay at the ninja school and graduate for me?" Finally, Tsunade, who was also earnestly showing his strength, broke out chakra for the second time and greeted him with one kick. Boom! Wooin was knocked out immediately, flying out like a baseball hit by a bat. But this time, the distance he was knocked into the air was even shorter. He grabbed his hands on the pillars of the training ground in midair, like an acrobat, sliding a circle on the pillars more than 1 meter in diameter. The moment of falling, Wu-Wen hit the pillar next to him with a fist. Click! The pillar shattered. Wu-Wen hugged his arms around his waist, and immediately picked up a pillar that was more than 1 meter in diameter and 5 meters in height. This kid! I want to tear down the school, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen almost didn't jump out of his chair. Wu-Wen roared in a low voice and threw the pillar towards Tsunade directly. What do you think you can do with this thing? Don't look at the magnificence of this trick, but it is nothing to Tsunade's eyes. The right hand was made into a fist, and he took a step forward. Senju Flow Strange Force Punch. The moment the fist touched the flying pillar, the huge pillar was beaten to pieces like tofu, and the residue hit the surrounding walls, ground, and ceiling. Boom, boom, boom. The slight shaking sounded again, causing the whole school to be in panic again and again. Second gate. Close the door. Open. In an instant, the muscles changed from soreness to pain. Wu-Wen's speed passed through the broken and impacted stones faster. Those rubble hit him like tofu, but he was crushed to pieces. Didn't I call you, kid? Stay at school for me obediently. Seeing that Wu-Wen was so difficult to deal with, Tsunade couldn't help getting irritated. He rushed forward at a speed that was not inferior to Wu-Wen in the second gate state. Weird punch. Iron body. Deafening shock. The collision of attack and defense. Iron body broken. Wu-Wen sipped in a low voice. A shock wave transformed from defense into attack, in Tsunade's perception, came from the elbows of both hands that Wu-Wen was hit by his fist. What I felt immediately afterwards was a wave of crushing energy. A staggering, Tsunade retreated for the first time in this battle. Shaved iron body jade. The body spins wildly like a top. The two moves are combined to concentrate the power completely on the solace of the feet. Damn it. Feeling the power coming from the solace of Wu-Wen's feet, Tsunade had to show some real skills. The high purity chakra, which is unique to the Senju family, is also concentrated on the solace of the feet. Tian Shao feet. A destructive attack that can easily smash the ground. Of course, Tsunade did not fail to use all his strength. But in the eyes of ordinary ninjas, it's already very scary. Bang, 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 bang. The explosive shock wave of the collision of the two strokes shook the surrounding walls out of cracks, and the windows were all shattered into fragments in an instant. The students in the classroom are no longer as simple as panic at this time. Many people are already scared and screaming. Your stuff has fallen, Wu-Wen suddenly said. Dang, hearing the crisp ringing, Tsunade looked at him for a while. Found in the collision just now. The bell tied around his waist unexpectedly broke in the violent impact and flew into the air. There was a moment of panic in his heart. Tsunade reached out and grabbed the flying bell. It's showing a flaw, Tsunade. Wu-Wen pressed a palm to Tsunade's lower abdomen. Iron body is broken. The disintegrating shock wave shook Tsunade back 5 or 6 meters in one breath. Wu-Wen took the opportunity to jump up and grab the deformed bell that had been shaken. Although it has been severely deformed, there is still a sound. Now, you can't help it if you don't want it. Wu-Wen shook the bell in his hand and laughed at Tsunade. After a few seconds of silence, he finally sighed helplessly. Tsunade stepped forward, holding on to Wu-Wen's curls, and ravaging him constantly. Wu-Wen, who was able to avoid it, had a strong swelling and pain in his body due to the connection of the second gate. It was better to say that he was too lazy to avoid it than he could not. He simply tilted his body and fell on Tsunade's waist. Although it's not there, it's amazingly soft. Damn it, it would be nice if it could grow 20 centimeters taller. Dead boy. After taking Wu-Wen's pulse, Tsunade made sure that he was not pretending, so he did not slap Wu-Wen, but gently let him lie on his lap and untie the forehead protector on his forehead, and wear it on the top of Wu-Wen's head. Wu-Wen was surprised. I saw Tsunade's angry voice. Originally, I thought you would never pass today, so I didn't prepare a forehead protector. I'll give you mine. Achievement, Final Ninja, Template Character, Monkey D. Garp, Completion, 15%, Activation Skill, Marine 6 Styles Finger Pistol, Observation Hacky. Hearing the sound coming from the system, Wu-Wen looked overjoyed. Unexpectedly, he awakened 2 important skills in one breath. One of them was Hacky, which he wanted very much, and he couldn't help but smile with excitement. Seeing Wu-Wen's look of excitement and ecstasy, Tsunade was also happy that he became genin. For some reason, he didn't get him up from his lap, but just lay down quietly. The duel between Wu-Wen and Tsunade caused a stir in the entire ninja school. Sarutobi Hiruzen had to send someone out to pass on the truth, and this allowed the students to calm down. On the playground, in the same class as Wu-Wen, the students of Kanaha Zyokang's generation in the future looked at the training building in shock. The glass slag that shattered the ground, and the cracks on the wall that could be seen faintly, all explained the fierce battle just now. Even though this happened, the class still has to go. Just as the head teacher was about to wave his hand to let everyone start a new day of basic training, a burst of exclamations sounded. It was from Kato Shizun, who had no sense of presence in the class on weekdays. Everyone looked at her and found that Shizun was looking at the gate of the teaching building with a surprised expression, and also turned to look. Then one by one also showed an incredible look. Wooen, wearing Konoha Forward Protector, walked out of the gate. He succeeded. Poker Face Kakashi was also surprised. Obito was even more envious. If she can have this kind of strength, Lin will definitely turn her attention from the guy Kakashi to her side, right? The only two in the class, Might Guy and Yurihong, who talk a lot on weekdays, beckoned. Wooen hurriedly left the ninja school. He no longer needed to stay here anymore. In the various gazes of the classmates, such as envy, jealousy, shock, and admiration, Wooen's back disappeared quickly into their field of vision. After Tsunade finished the test on himself, he went to Sarutobi Hiruzen to discuss his future distribution as a ninja. Either join the official N.A.N. army, or wait for this year's graduation assessment and form a 3-person team with the senior class students. This matter is not for Wooen to decide, but to wait quietly. Sarutobi Hiruzen, who likes voyeurism, definitely took the assessment process just now in his eyes. I believe that with his political level, he will not give himself a bad environment. However, from Tsunade's information, the second ninja war really seemed to be coming to an end. From the point that Sarutobi Hiruzen summoned them Sunin from the front line, Madara can be seen. At least the war that Konoha participated in was basically over. Do you really want to lose that bet? Although Tsunade should ignore the bet, Wooen still doesn't like the taste of losing. After school that night, Ziri father and daughter, Might father and son, heard that Wooen had become Genin. They especially found him and helped him celebrate. But the hospitality fee can really make them painful for a while. When other villagers or ninjas around the barbecue restaurant saw the forward protector on Wooen's forehead, they all showed incredible expressions. So young, only about 5 or 6 years old, right? Already become a ninja? Which family is it from? And how will you be assigned in the future? Join the official army or team up with senior graduates? Shirihong asked curiously. No way, wait for Tsunade's reply. Wooen, whose cheeks were stuffed with roast meat, was about to bulge into a frog, and Wooen couldn't speak clearly. It's so dirty, and no one is robbing you. When did we come out to eat when we watched you eat? Seeing the gravy dripping from the corner of Wooen's mouth, Shirihong looked disgusted, but picked up the napkin and wiped the corner of Wooen's mouth twice. Yuri, who was sitting across from the watch, made a red-eye move. There is an urge to slap Wooen. Uncle Real Red, is the war really going to end? Wooen asked suddenly. Yuri Zhenhong looked slightly startled and nodded. Well, Hanzo has already withdrawn the army that invaded the border of the country of fire. Although there are still many frictions in the country of rain, the country of wind, and the country of soil, there is basically no fire. It's a matter of the country. Hey, it seems that you are going to lose that bet. Shirihong smiled and laughed. At this moment, a Chunin scorched into the barbecue restaurant and quickly found Yuri Zhenhong. Master Zhenhong, you are here. What's wrong? Yuri frowned. The attitude of the other party made him feel an ominous premonition. Chunin looked at the surroundings and whispered in a low voice, leaning against Yuri Zhenhong's ear. And Yuri's red face changed drastically, and she stood up suddenly. Excuse me, Hong, and I have to take a trip first. With that, Yuri Zhenhong quickly left with the Chunin. Fortunately, I left my wallet directly before I left. It's rare for Dad to show such an expression. It's okay, right? Shirihong was very worried. It's all right, I promise you the happiness of the rest of my life. Wooen patted Shirihong's shoulder and said, who cares about your happiness for the rest of your life? Shiri gave him a red and white look, but he was also relieved. The reason Wooen is so sure is because he knows that Yuri Zhenhong died in the Nine Tails chaos. At least nothing can happen now. Might Dai also solemnly said, what can make Zhenhong so surprised? It must be related to war. I will also go and see. It is almost impossible for Might to wear this genin, but he still wants to do his part. He also left immediately. Might Guy was not as excited as before, and he was very worried. What will happen? It's useless to worry about your current strength. Strengthen your strength as soon as possible. Although it sounds bad, what Wooen said is really the truth. However, after this brief accident, the 3 people who stayed were not in the mood to celebrate. Wooen didn't have enough to eat, so he paid and left hastily. Go, I'll take you home. After Might Guy left, Wooen said to Shirihong, Yurihong is getting closer to her grown-up character, and she murmurs softly. In less than 15 minutes, Shirihong was sent home. The two found a note on the shoe cabinet at the door. Read, I'm sorry that Dad has to go back to the front line and cheer up at school. Don't be thrown too far by this. B********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* frowned slightly. It seems that something unexpected happened. Originally, Tsunade said that within 3 days, Wu-En's team arrangement after becoming genin should be confirmed. As a result, nearly a week has passed and he has not responded to him, and Wu-En himself has not received any notice. Therefore, he intends to visit the Senju clan by himself and ask Tsunade. Just as they were passing the street, a group of ninjas suddenly walked towards their side, and at the same time they were talking about something resentful. And the one leading the team was Orochimaru, one of N.A.N. N.A.N had sharp eyes and realized that the two Chunin who had been violently beaten by him before were actually among them. And those two people also talked with others with a grieving face. Damn White Fang, the war was about to end. That is, if it weren't for him, how could we suddenly be sent to the battlefield? He is not worthy of the hero known as Konoha. He should be put in prison. Orochimaru, who was walking at the front of the team, saw Wu-Wen on the opposite side, narrowed his eyes and flashed a hint of interest. But without stopping to say hello to Wu-Wen, he prepared to leave the village quickly. Senior Orochimaru, what happened? Orochimaru didn't say hello, but Wu-Wen took the initiative to speak up. Orochimaru stopped unexpectedly when he heard the words, and said with his hoarse voice, "The Kingdom of Wind has declared war on us, and the war is about to start again. I want to take someone there." The two Chunin who had been violently beaten by Wu-Wen before saw him, and suddenly shrank into the team in fright. War is on again. Wu-Wen frowned and asked, "What's the matter? Just now I seem to hear these people behind you discussing White Fang or something." "Master Orochimaru, what do you explain to this kid? We have to hurry to the frontier battlefield of the Kingdom of Wind. If it weren't for White Fang, the war would have ended long ago. It was all his fault. It's just that he doesn't know how much loss his stupid decision will bring to Konoha and even the country of fire." Listening to the squeaky and crooked ninjas behind, Wu-Wen couldn't help but whispered, "It's so noisy. You guys. I didn't talk to you." The people behind Orochimaru were taken aback, and a few seconds later, there was a burst of anger. "You kid, do you know who you are talking to? When you are a ninja at a young age, do you feel proud of yourself? Tell you, Konoha has so many geniuses. Master Orochimaru, let me throw this kid away." However, Orochimaru said coldly, "Quiet." As soon as the cage-level strongman spoke, he immediately calmed everyone down. Immediately, Orochimaru smiled strangely. "With your strength, he will surpass you all in less than 3 years. It's best not to offend the strong in the future." Orochimaru is really telling the truth. The group of people he brought out now is a team that was temporarily entangled because of an accident. The average strength is at the level of Chunin's elite. In Orochimaru's view, it will probably take less than 3 years for Wu-Wen to reach this level. The ninjas behind Orochimaru were embarrassed. The boss has spoken, how dare they refute? Comparing the age at which they graduated from the ninja school, it seems that this is really the case. Orochimaru said hoarsely, "I don't have time to explain to you now. If you want to know, just ask Tsunade." Speaking, Orochimaru led the troops to accelerate away from Konoha. Turning his eyes to the back of Orochimaru's departure, Wu-Wen said inwardly, "Is the White Fang incident. With the pinnacle of cage level, it may even surpass the suicide of Konoha's White Fang, one of the strongest ninjas of the time, like Sarutobi Hiruzen. If you think about it carefully, it really happened this year." But in Wu-Wen's view, this fact is a bit funny. A strong man at the pinnacle of cage level committed suicide because of rumors? Thinking of this, Wu-Wen rushed towards Tsunade's house. Although he is not acquainted with White Fang and has not even seen each other once, he really wants to know what is going on. Upon arriving at Tsunade's house, Wu-Wen found that Tsunade had also put on Konoha Shinobi's vest suit. Seeing Wu-Wen's arrival, Tsunade was also taken aback, and then said, "Now there is going to be a war again, and your affairs can only be put aside. When I came, I heard a lot of dragons talking about White Fang. What is going on?" Wu-Wen walked up and said, "Long Set." Hearing Wu-Wen's name, Tsunade couldn't help but smiled, and then gave a rough explanation of the situation. It turned out that White Fang accepted an S-level mission not long ago and went to Tsunagakure to meet with Konoha, a spy who had been in Sand Shinobi for more than 10 years, to receive Tsunagakure's intelligence. As a result, the spy actually showed his feet in Sand Shinobi some time ago and was followed. As a result, the encounter with White Fang was discovered by Sand Shinobi. The Konoha spy asked White Fang to kill himself immediately to prove that he had nothing to do with Konoha, which allowed Sand Shinobi to start a war against Konoha without an excuse. But if White Fang wants to kill Konoha's ninja, he really can't do it. Moreover, he had a good relationship with the Konoha spy ninja. Because of the information he provided, White Fang was able to successfully kill the parents of Sasori of Akasha. In the end, White Fang chose to save and rescued the spy that Konoha had planted in Sand Shinobi. As a result, Sand Shinobi learned about this and finally caught the reason for launching a war against Konoha. Fully attack Konoha. You know, now the old lady of Cho has not retreated to the second line, she is a member of Sand Shinobi's high level. If he could have a chance to avenge his son and daughter-in-law, how could he miss this opportunity? After listening to Tsunade's explanation, Wu-Wen can completely understand the reason for White Fang's suicide. In some ways, it was indeed because of White Fang's misjudgment that the war between the country of fire and the country of wind was caused. It is not surprising that he himself received such severe accusations and responsibility, or chose the path of suicide. But such important information would be made known to everyone. There is no Konoha shit stick behind him. Wu-Wen didn't believe it. But if Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't stop it at all, Wu-Wen didn't believe it. After all, he still doesn't have Alzheimer's, so how can he not hear the least bit of rumors with so many rumors? One big reason is that this time, what White Fang committed was too great, big enough to shake his position as Hokage. Don't think that you can be carefree if you sit on the throne of Hokage. The third ninja war in the future is precisely because of Sarutobi Hiruzen's mistakes, which forced him to abdicate after the ninja war and give way to Namikaze Minato in advance. After that, Tsunade was also due to the pain incident, and Danzo took advantage of it and took the place of Hokage. Even if you are Hokage, once you make a big mistake, you can't sit down in this position. And White Fang's mistake provoked a war between the country of fire and the country of wind. Such a big event may be enough to shake Sarutobi Hiruzen's position as Hokage. And Sarutobi Hiruzen is also a normal person and will be angry. I am afraid there is also a lot of resentment towards White Fang. Although he wouldn't fall into the rumors about this matter, in all likelihood, he took a silent onlooker. In the end, I didn't expect that White Fang would choose to commit suicide. In Wu-Wen's view, White Fang still obeyed Sarutobi Hiruzen, and Sarutobi Hiruzen would not let him die. There is still a lot of surprise in this matter. Why are you suddenly concerned about White Fang? Have you met him? Seeing Wu-Wen thinking silently, Tsunade couldn't help but patted Wu-Wen on the shoulder. I just feel that such a strong person would be a pity if he commits suicide. Wu-Wen really has nothing to do with White Fang. Don't talk about White Fang. Konoha doesn't care about what will happen, he just treats White Fang with a mentality that the strong cherish the strong. It feels like he died like this, which is really a pity. Suicide. Tsunade's complexion changed slightly, and then he didn't believe it. Isn't it possible? White Fang is very strong. How could he commit suicide? A cage-level peak powerhouse committed suicide. In Tsunade's view, it was simply unbelievable. Don't underestimate the power of gossip, especially when there are people behind it, Wu-Wen said solemnly. Tsunade still didn't believe it. Let's go to White Fang's house and talk to him. Wu-Wen pulled Tsunade's hand and said, you lead the way. He doesn't know where White Fang lives. I think you are more likely to be considered a neurotic by him. Tsunade let out a helpless cry. She didn't believe that White Fang was so fragile from beginning to end, but she still clashed with Wu-Wen, especially when he heard the words someone behind is helping the flames. Tsunade also vaguely felt an ominous premonition. Soon, along the way, Tsunade also heard a lot of rumors accusing White Fang. I also realized that there might be something wrong with this matter. Her attitude gradually became serious. After telling Wu-Wen White Fang's home address, she decided to see Sarutobi Hiruzen to find out the situation. As one of the strongest ninjas, White Fang's house is not luxurious, but the area is a bit larger than ordinary houses. At this time, White Fang locked himself in the study alone. Just yesterday, he was temporarily dismissed from his position as a ninja by Sarutobi Hiruzen and stayed at home on standby. Boom boom boom. There was a fierce knock on the door. Kakashi, who hadn't noticed his father's condition, frowned and walked to the door, opening the door. Who? Such a heavy knock. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Wu-Wen's face that I didn't want to see very much. What are you doing here? Kakashi was shocked. Is your father at home? Wu-Wen asked. What are you looking for my dad for? Do you want to tell him how you beat me? Kakashi warned and prepared to close the door directly. His father N.A.N, who has a little paternal control, is most afraid of his father knowing his embarrassment. He was defeated by Wu-Wen stepping on his head before, which is a shame. I'm not as boring as you. Unexpectedly that the kid Kakashi was so naive, Wu-Wen didn't bother to talk nonsense at all, just said, you help me tell your dad a sentence, no matter what happens, there is nothing if you die. That's it. After speaking, Wu-Wen left without looking back. He never thought of enlightening White Fang like a psychiatrist, and he didn't have that idle time. There is only so little he can do. If nothing can be changed, there is nothing he can do. This sentence is also Wu-Wen's attitude towards the White Fang incident. If he himself stood from White Fang's point of view, he would not be able to commit suicide anyway, not to mention the war that led to the country of fire and the country of wind. Even if it leads to a joint attack on Konoha by the 4 ninja villages, become a betrayal and wanted by Konoha, Wu-Wen will never give up his life for anything. Weird guy. He glanced at Wu-Wen's leaving back, scratching his head. Kakashi struggled for a while, walked to the study, knocked on the door. Dad. Kakashi, what's wrong? White Fang's voice came from inside, but Kakashi hadn't felt the tiredness in his father's tone. Kakashi opened the study door and said, a weird guy in my class just asked me to tell you a word. White Fang looked startled and confused. Kakashi said, no matter what happens, there is nothing left after death. That's what he said. It's a weird guy. Dead, nothing. White Fang repeated these words in a low voice. After a few seconds, his eyes returned to light. Kakashi, your classmate, is your friend. How is it possible? He is a guy who hates news. Kakashi quickly retorted. Ha ha. White Fang chuckled softly. The heavy mentality finally showed a trace of relief. On the other side, in Hokage's office. After listening to Tsunade's report about the rumors, Sarutobi Hiruzen became a little nervous while also being solemn. As Wu-Wen guessed, although White Fang's major mistakes caused Sarutobi Hiruzen to resent White Fang deeply, even for this reason, his ninja position has been temporarily shelved. But Sarutobi Hiruzen never thought about killing White Fang. After all, White Fang is the top combat power in the village. After thinking about it for a while, Sarutobi Hiruzen immediately dispatched Umbu to control the fishing vessel rumors. After Umbu's investigation, I found the messenger behind him, the friend who had serious disagreements with him on the political line in recent years, Shimura Danzo. But at this time, Tsunade has already left and will meet with Wu-An unexpectedly. This old fellow Danzo is so courageous that even White Fang would dare to frame him, huh? In Konoha Forest, the two sat opposite each other on both sides of the bonfire, with grilled fish with branches hanging in the middle. Tsunade said angrily. She didn't know the results of Umbu's investigation, but with her past experience, she could guess who did it with her toes. And the reason is easy to guess. After all, White Fang is on Sarutobi Hiruzen's side. If White Fang dies, then Sarutobi Hiruzen will undoubtedly lose an arm. Danzo wants to compete for the position of Hokage in the future. It is much simpler. But Danzo, the old guy, is not good at strength, but he is very clever in politics. I'm afraid the old guy can't do anything to him this time. Tsunade looked a pity. Danzo only needs to hand over such small things to his puppets who were brainwashed by him. I really hope that this bit of trouble can do what Danzo can do. Click Wu and bit on the cooked grilled fish, making a crisp sound. Tsunade wanted to take a picture of the fish in this kid's hand, and said angrily, "You kid, you know how to eat. I'm telling you serious things." He took 2 bites and swallowed the fish into his stomach. Wu-Wen said abruptly, "White Fang's house is under surveillance, is it Umbu?" Tsunade was surprised when he heard this. "What did you say?" "It's about 50 meters in radius. With 6 ninjas, I can perceive so much, isn't it Umbu?" Wu-Wen said in an unclear tone. Can you perceive it? You are not perceiving a ninja, are you?" Tsunade frowned tightly. "Even if it is a perception ninja, if you want to perceive the type of ninja that Umbu is very good at hiding, you also need a strong perception ability. General sentient ninjas are auxiliary types, so they are not good at fighting. Of course, there are very few exceptions, like second Hokage Senju Tobirama. But with Wu-Wen's open and close combat type, Tsunade doesn't think he is a perception type. I'm just naturally more sensitive to breath." Wu-Wen pointed to his rear right direction. "For example, at 4 o'clock behind me, there is a crow standing on the 13-meter 2 branch of the trunk of the tree 12 meters behind me." With a half-believing attitude, Tsunade pulled out a handful of kunao and threw it in the direction Wu-Wen said. "Hey!" A bird chirping sounded. Sure enough, the crow that had been hit by kunao fell off. Tsunade was unbelievable. She once heard that her second grandfather, Senju Tobirama, had excellent perception abilities since she was a child. At the peak, she could even perceive enemy forces 100 miles away. Could this kid also? Tsunade sighed secretly that he might have actually picked up the treasure, but remembering what Wu-Wen said just now, he said with caution, "Are you sure you perceive 6 ninjas monitoring White Fang? Do you think I'm not sure I will tell you?" Wu-Wen asked rhetorically. Tsunade's pretty face was tense, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Umbu doesn't need to monitor White Fang. He must be the old Danzo, damn it. The old man is really too weak." He even sat and watched Danzo's power develop to this point. The color expression moved, as if he was thinking of something. Tsunade suddenly said, "You went to the White Fang's house, and you were discovered by the root ninja. Maybe it will attract Danzo's attention. Let's take the initiative to tell third old man generation applies, and you will act with me in the future. I just went to the next classmate's house. Is it that serious?" Wu-Wen stopped eating fish. Don't underestimate Danzo's wariness of the old thing. Killing 1000 by mistake is his usual style of doing things. If you let him know that you broke his business, then it will be troublesome. No matter how talented Wu-Wen is, he doesn't have any background. If Danzo wants to fix him, there are ways, and more serious, is to be forced into root and brainwashed into Danzo's puppet. But Tsunade believes that if he is brought by his side, even if Danzo finds out in the end, he will not have the guts to do something with the people around him. Wu-Wen thought about it carefully. Indeed, Danzo is not so tolerant. My current strength wanted to confront one of Konoha's highest powers, but it was far from enough. Aren't you going to the battlefield? So, I won the bet? The pendant is mine. Suddenly seeing the pendant on Tsunade's neck, Wu-Wen recalled the bet and reached for it. Tsunade reacted suddenly, and also remembered the gambling appointment. He offered to bring him by his side, and he was about to go to the battlefield again. Isn't this just dug a hole and jump into it yourself? However, Wu-Wen has already removed the curve of the necklace from Tsunade's neck, hung it on his neck, and smiled triumphantly. "Hey, in this way, this thing will belong to me." Seeing Wu-Wen triumphantly, Tsunade was stunned for a long time, and finally turned his face to the other side. Obviously this result was acquiesced. In the original work, the old lady of the 1,000 generations mentioned that she had several medical battles in the Second Ninja War. She constantly invented new poisons, but Tsunade cracked them one by one, finally establishing Tsunade's strong position in the medical industry. When Orochimaru led the reinforcements to the battlefield of the Kingdom of Wind, Tsunade was almost ready to set off. In order to prevent Danzo, a guy with a small belly and chicken intestines, from attacking N.A.N, Tsunade decided to take him with him and head to the battle of the Kingdom of Wind. The time is only 3 days. N.A.N learned that although White Fang was dismissed by Sarutobi Hiruzen, he has not committed suicide so far. Presumably the words he said also played a role. But the risk is that Danzo is very likely to think about it. Forget it, it's just a dead old man whose strength is regressing rapidly, so there is no need to worry too much. Shaking his head, he immediately drove Danzo out of his head. For people like N.A.N who advocating powerlessness, Danzo is a good hand for political conspiracy, but his strength is a tasteless commodity, but he doesn't care about it. Although Danzo could reach cage level when he was young, in recent years, as he ages, his strength has receded day by day. In the future, I will transplant Senju Hashirama's cells in N.A.N to make my body inhuman. Izanagi used this magical skill 10 times, but he couldn't beat a blind Sasuke. Let you kill Uchiha, Shisui, Yahiko, and even White Fang at the pinnacle of cage level in the original book. N.A.N still ignored it. Tsunade led a medical team of less than 20 people. Don't underestimate the importance of medical ninjas at any time. In the age of war, these people are no less effective than Umbu. And N.A.N, who is walking beside Tsunade, is particularly conspicuous. A 5-year-old kid among the group of on-track ninjas who are about to enter the battlefield, the sense of disharmony is too heavy, right? When N.A.N was preparing to head to the battlefield with the medical unit led by Tsunade, unexpectedly, when he walked to the entrance of the village, he met a group of acquaintances. They are all the people who interact with each other more in the ninja school. My head teacher, Might Guy, Yuri Hong, Uchiha Obito, Rin Nohara. Unexpectedly, even Kakashi was there. Be careful, the battlefield and the village, but 2 worlds, the teacher in charge said. Although I don't know why Mr. Hokage wants such a child to follow on the battlefield, he must have his reason. The head teacher didn't mix it up, and the only thing that could be done was to give such a suggestion, hoping that this genius would not be killed on the battlefield. Come on, N. Youth is the burst of colorful light. Might Guy raised his thumb and shouted in blood. Yes, I will catch up with you soon. Might Guy Interface shouted. I didn't expect you to go to the battlefield first, but it must be me who became Hokage. The big boss of the future is still very second now. Be careful. Nohara Lin's words are very ordinary, but also very sincere. What are you doing here? Seeing your stinky face makes me feel bad. Before Kakashi could speak, N.A.N sighed. Kakashi almost didn't mention it, and hummed, my father asked me to thank you, otherwise I don't want to see you. After speaking, Kakashi Tsundere turned his head to the other side. Hearing this, N.A.N was completely certain that White Fang had no suicidal thoughts. Are you stupid? You have to go to the battlefield at such a young age. Don't you know how dangerous it is? Upon hearing this, N.A.N guessed who it was. Turning his head and looking around, Shiri Hong was staring at herself with tears in her eyes. Don't worry, I will never make you a widow. N.A.N stepped forward and touched Shiri Hong's head with a smirk, and said with a pun. This sentence actually has a double meaning. One is to prevent Shiri Hong from repeating the mistakes of the original, and the other, everyone knows. Now, what everyone around understands is the second meaning. Sure enough, in everyone's different eyes, Yuri Hong's face blushed, lowering her little head. Boy, let's go. For some reason, Tsunade's tone was rather unpleasant, and he patted N.A.N's shoulder hard from behind, and walked past everyone's shoulders. Wait me back. After holding Yuri Hong in her arms twice and stamping her on her forehead, N.A.N quickly caught up with Tsunade's pace. Only the back of everyone who witnessed his departure was left. When their backs were about to disappear, Shiri Hong couldn't help but yelled in the direction where N.A.N was leaving, don't die. You be asterisk 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 D. This is youth, Guy. Yeah, Dad. The father and son were both turned on, and they cried out embracing each other in tears of joy. At the speed of a ninja, I felt that the battlefield as the border between the country of wind and the country of fire didn't take long from Konoha. It is just 4 days and 3 nights. At present, Jiraiya is still in the country of rain and has not yet returned. The frontline commander in charge of the battle with the country of wind is Orochimaru. When seeing N.A.N coming with Tsunade, Orochimaru's eyes flashed with curiosity, and he habitually used a snakehead to add to the corner of his mouth. You are on the battlefield at such a young age? Tsunade, you really have enough confidence in yourself as a new disciple. While N.A.N felt a bit cold, Orochimaru's eyes were mainly on the pendant hanging on N.A.N's neck. Orochimaru, who grew up with Tsunade, naturally knows what it means to Tsunade. Unexpectedly, Tsunade gave him all this. I'll explain this to you later, and quickly explain the situation on the battlefield. Tsunade didn't have a good air. She didn't bother to dare Orochimaru, the gloomy fellow, talked a lot. Orochimaru didn't talk nonsense, and led everyone into the camp, where a map was hanging. For San Shinobi, the main force is 3rd Kaze Kage, Cho, the elder of the puppet troops, and Cho's younger brother Ebizo, who has quasi-film capabilities. After a pause, Orochimaru went on to explain, although 3rd Kazekage's magnet style is difficult to deal with, the more troublesome thing is Cho's poison. A little touch is enough to die. There are already many people here who are poisoned, so we are in a hurry. Call youth Tsunade. I'll get treatment right away. Tsunade nodded solemnly. Orochimaru added, I don't need to say how harsh the environment in the Kingdom of Wind is in San Shinobi. They lack logistical support, so they want a quick fight. We are currently taking defensive measures and hope to delay it as soon as possible. Kill them. Listening to Orochimaru's words, Wuen couldn't help but sigh. Although it has started pervert now, Orochimaru still has real materials. It's no wonder that although he was not interested in Hokage, he failed to become 4th Hokage and became a fuse for Orochimaru to betray Konoha. After all, so much credit has been given to Konoha, but in the end it is mainly because of the increasingly estranged relationship with the teacher, and the personality is not as likable as Namikaze Minato, which is really uncomfortable. Immediately, Orochimaru assigned a series of tasks. When he saw Wuen standing beside Tsunade, his mouth curled up with an inexplicable smile and asked Tsunade, this kid, let him be a kitchen cook? I feel quite right. Tsunade responded with a chuckle. To be honest, she originally planned to give Wuen an irrelevant job. After all, Tsunade's main purpose for bringing Wuen to the war was to guard against the old culprit Danzo, not to make him do something earth-shattering on the battlefield. I will put laxatives in my meal, Wuen said abruptly. Just kidding, the battlefield is a good opportunity to grow strength. And this is the last year of the Second Ninja World War, so how can one let go of the opportunity? Cook? It might as well go back to Konoha. Tsunade's beautiful eyes glared, and he scolded, you kid, you have to fight against me, right? Don't make so much noise, Tsunade. Orochimaru was very interested and said, I am also very interested to see how far your new disciple has reached. Since you want to go to the battlefield, then give you a task. When the voice fell, Orochimaru gave an order to a deputy next to him. The assistant nodded, and within 5 minutes, he walked in with a group of 5 people. The leader is Kato-dan, who was beaten by Wuen at Konoha Cemetery last time. Wow, man, you are not dead yet? Wuen said to Kato-dan with an incredible expression. This is really not a pretend. You know, this year is likely to be the last year of the Second Ninja War, and Kato-dan died in the Second Ninja War. He is still alive now, which really surprised N.A.N. The faces of the 5 people behind Kato-dan changed drastically, and Kato-dan's face turned black instantly. I really hate this kid. I hurt myself the last time I met, and the first sentence of the meeting is not to apologize. I actually cursed myself to die. Tsunade's face was quite embarrassed, but he didn't scold Wuen aloud, just glared at him. Orochimaru was not interested in the grievances between Wuen and Kato-dan. He pointed to a location on the map and said, previously, there was news from the intelligence ninja of the Hyuga clan that San Shinobi hid a batch of food in this location, but was too close to the San Shinobi frontline base camp and was heavily guarded, so he did not dare to act rashly. San Shinobi's biggest problem is that their logistical supplies are severely insufficient. If this granary can be destroyed, it will be overwhelmingly beneficial to us. This task is the most important task assigned to the Shukan who possesses the spiritual technique. Suitable. As he said, Orochimaru turned his gaze to Wuen again. How about, do you want to act together? As a temporary member of the assassination raid team, Orochimaru, this task is too dangerous, right? Looking at the location of San Shinobi's granary on the map, Tsunade couldn't help frowning. That place is too close to San Shinobi's base camp, and it will be surrounded by any carelessness, which is extremely dangerous. Orochimaru said indifferently, with broken spiritualization technique, the risk can be reduced, and it is his own business to accept it or not. He is just a little interested in Wuen's current strength. If he succeeds, he can bring a greater chance of victory in the war. If he fails, it is just a few more corpses. Are there few geniuses that Konoha has fallen since childhood? Kato-dan suddenly said, Master Tsunade, I think with my spiritualization technique, there is no need to get too close to the granary, so the difficulty of the task is not too high. Since your disciple wants to show his strength, let him go together. What Kato-dan said made Wuen quite uncomfortable. He said he was like Uchiha Sasuke's second stunner. There is indeed a reason to avoid Danzo's old silver force when I came to the battlefield, but more still want to rely on the battlefield to grow their strength. You, who is rounded to nearly 30, are only a special Jonin-level weak chicken, so dare you to teach me? Kato-dan does not have the second-generation idea of, you move my woman, I will kill you, in the internet novel. Of course, he didn't have that ability either, and the Kato family was no better than ordinary civilians. Not to mention comparing Uchiha, Hyuga, Sarutobi and other big tribes, Ino, Shuka, Cho are far inferior. However, Wuen has repeatedly opposed him, and Kato-dan has a vengeful heart. Of course, he is not an idiot to attack Tsunade's new disciple. After all, there are other Konoha shinobi who follow the team. He must really dare to do to Wooin with his own hands. The other four will never dare to go with him, and will definitely inform Tsunade as soon as possible. Kato-dan just wanted to try the opportunity to see if he could borrow the enemy's person to make this little devil disappear. In other words, it means borrowing a knife to kill, or seeing death without saving. This is Kato-dan's only way at the moment. Rather than let Wooin stick to Tsunade all the time, it's better to use this method to fix him. If Wooin knew Kato-dan's inner thoughts, he would definitely poach him with disdain. Lao Zi is not your kind of licking dog. If you don't want to improve your own strength, you know these conspiracies. But there is one idea: he is the same as Kato-dan. That is, seeing death without saving. Although Wooin hates Kato-dan very much, he is still not going to kill him. The White Fang incident proved that the turmoil caused by the butterfly Wooin did not change much of the plot of the original work. Therefore, Kato-dan may still die in the Second Ninja World War. If he encountered this incident, Wooin would never save him. Therefore, under Orochimaru's suggestion, Wooin's first mission decided to destroy Sand Shinobi's granary with the assassination raid team led by Kato-dan. The time is decided for the next Sand Shinobi attack. While most of Sand Shinobi's combat power was concentrated on the front line, the team raided their rear wing to destroy the granary. After the meeting, Tsunade immediately went to the infirmary to examine those Konoha shinobi who were severely injured by the poison made by Cho. Seeing Tsunade's solemn look, studying the antidote, Wooin did not bother, but went to the corner of the camp alone to get familiar with observation haki. In just 2 days, Tsunade cracked Cho's poison and successfully rescued hundreds of Konoha shinobi who were deeply poisoned in one breath. This news was fed back to Sand Shinobi, and Cho and others were shocked. After hearing that it was Konoha's Princess Senju Tsunade Haim who had cracked his poison, Cho, who was eager to avenge his son and daughter-in-law, felt a strong unwillingness to develop a new poison immediately. And just 5 days later, Sand Shinobi finally launched a full-scale attack under the leadership of 3rd Kazekage, known as the Strong Wind Shadow, and Orochimaru and Tsunade, the two Konoha Sunin, naturally led a large force to meet. At the same time, Wooin, who joined the raid team, followed the 5 people headed by Kato-dan to secretly go to the granary at the rear wing of the Sand Shinobi base camp. Deep Yoryuki Road copied the trail, and when the granary was nearly 20 kilometers away, Kato-dan raised his hand to signal everyone to stop. No way, who called him the captain of the operation? At this time, there was only less than half an hour left before dawn. After observing the surroundings, Kato-dan said solemnly, "It's all right here. I used the spiritualization technique to sneak into the granary. During this period, I can't move. Take care of my body." "Oh, the captain's secret technique is really far away," Wooin said. "As far as I know, the distances are as high as tens of miles, except for Tailed Beast Bomb or Susanoo, which can be counted with one hand." Another Jonin member chuckled. Kaido, of course, it was the person who had practiced this secret technique to ultimate, and he was promoted from Chunin to Jonin with this technique. "Wow, I was promoted from Chunin to Jonin with a skill," Wooin seemed to sigh. But when Kato-dan heard it, there was no trace of admiration in that tone, but rather a taunt of mockery. Now that the war is urgent, Kato-dan has no intention of entanglement with this nasty 5-year-old kid. Immediately sitting cross-legged on the ground, Kato-dan in the form of a white soul quickly emerged from the surface of his body and flew towards Sand Shinobi's granary at a very fast speed in an instant. Kato-dan, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor, stood still. The other 4 Jonin also used a lineup of 4 to stand guard in 4 directions beside Kato-dan. Can the captain in this state not see or hear? Aside from Kato-dan, whose eyes were confined, Wooin suddenly thought, yes, this technique is very powerful. There is almost no ninjutsu that can attack the spiritual state, but the disadvantage is that during this period, one's own body cannot do anything, or even detect the danger, so you must team up to carry out the task, said a middle-aged Jonin who seems to appreciate Wooin's age to be able to go to the battlefield. "Then I'm a little peeing now, it's okay to slap him on him?" Wooin asked again. And this problem almost didn't make the other 4 Jonin gush out water. "You kid, isn't it okay to break the relationship?" The middle-aged Jonin coughed hard. "No, LA. Wooin waved his hand and began to alert. Although he doesn't care if Kato-dan will die. However, the enemy will not be treated differently. Once found, he will also become the target of the opponent's kill. About 3 minutes later, the other 4 Jonin were observing all around. Wooin suddenly raised his brows and pointed his right index finger toward a piece of sandstone about 20 meters ahead of his right finger pistol. A burst of Chi-Jin burst from the fingertips with impressive destructive power, and pierced the rock through a small hole the size of a fingertip cover in one breath. But with amazing penetrating power, I saw the 2-meter-thick rock directly penetrated. As the rock shattered, another Jonin was shocked and couldn't help but yelled at Wooin, "What are you doing? This is a confidential mission. Do you want to bring the enemy over?" The other 3 Jonin's faces were also more or less angry. 20 kilometers may seem far away, but for a ninja, it is only a matter of 10 minutes. Moreover, this place is near the base camp of the enemy village. Idiot, look clearly. Wu pointed at the rock faintly. The four of them stared. 2 seconds later, I was surprised to find out. The yellow sand floating in front of the rock turned into a human eye, but a hole was punched out of the center point, which was obviously done by Wu's finger pistol just now. The third eye, or called the Eye of Sand. In the future Kanaha's Chunin exam, it was used by Gaara for the first time. But in fact there is one person who will do this trick. In the next instant, 6 people, including N.A.N., who had not yet recovered their souls, were sitting on the ground under their skins. The yellow sand surged violently, causing everyone to tilt their bodies. Wu jumped up for the first time and looked down. The large area of yellow sand on the sand seemed to be controlled by some kind of force, and it rolled up like a tsunami. This picture made Wu think of Gaara for the first time. But at this point in time, that guy hadn't been born yet, so there was only one person left. The other 4 Jonin were also taken aback. N.A.N., who was still in the spiritualization technique state, couldn't move, and was about to be swept in by Huangsha. The one who just yelled at Wu, the young Jonin who was closest to N.A.N., gritted his teeth, lifted N.A.N. with one hand, and was about to jump up together. However, because of N.A.N., his speed was a step slower. The yellow sand rolled up from the ground, has crawled to his ankle and twisted. Click! The sound of something cracking sounded. In a cry of pain, the young Jonin and N.A.N. fell back to the ground. Get out of here! Wu let out an unpleasant sound, and slammed his punch to the ground. Bang! In an instant, it seemed that explosives buried in the sand exploded. The yellow sand in the positive area exploded tens of meters in mid-air. The dozen or so ninjas wearing Sunaga Core Forward Protector hidden in the yellow sand also showed up in one breath. What a terrible power! It is unbelievable that it was made by such a big child. Standing at the forefront is a young man with dark red hair wearing black clothes and a sand shinobi ninja suit vest. Apparently, he was about 18 years old. Wu looked at each other with such an expression as expected. The future 4th Kaze Kage, Luasha. That is, Gaara's father. When he perceives the third eye trick with the color of sight and hearing, he has already confirmed that it is the other party. Standing at the forefront of Sand Shinobi's team, Luosha took a step forward, with an indifferent expression with pride. I've heard that Kanaha has a ninja who is very good at spiritualization technique, and I expected that you will definitely let him destroy us. The logistic granary of the People's Republic of China, so I've been waiting for a long time nearby, so let's use your corpses as our weapon to weaken Kanaha's morale. Mediocre people who have reached the level of Jonin before they are almost 20 dare to say. Seeing Luosha's proud expression, Wu couldn't help but mocked. Luosha's face went dark. He was promoted to Jonin when he was less than 20 years old, and he was indeed quite good. But compared to Sunin when he was a genin at 6, Namikaze Minato was promoted to the Jonin elite at 15, which is still far behind. And seeing Wu, a child who seemed to be only about 5 years old, appeared on the battlefield, Luosha was certain that this was another Kanaha's newly born genius. Ha, kid, you need to know, Tenten often ends up with death. With a sigh of relief, Luosha put his hands together. Quicksand waterfall. Haven't learned the sands yet? Seeing the violent sand coming like a tsunami, Wu's heart moved. After possessing knowledge, Wu feels that he has one more skill. It is also possible to roughly judge the opponent's strength through the perception of the target chakra by seeing,